Is there life among the stars? In our real world, that's a question best answered by people smarter than me, or crazier than me, depending on how you look at it. In the Pokémon world though, the answer is a definitive yes, and that has been the answer for as long as the series has been around. I want to do more than just point them all out to you though. After all, a question that I would immediately ask next is, okay, so where are these extraterrestrial Pokémon from? And that is one the games rarely ever answer. So I'm taking up that role to try to analyze whatever small bits of information we can find about the true origins of these apparent aliens. First of all, the basics. One thing is for certain, no matter where all these Pokémon who traveled through space to end up on our familiar planet are originally from, it can be too different from their new home. After all, any alien Pokémon you would expect to be able to breed can do so with the native Pokémon of whatever the planet all games take place on is called. Therefore, we can conclude that while they may be aliens in a technical sense, it's not like they're some super crazy, incomprehensible different species or anything. This could also possibly tie into the story that Mew is the ancestor of all Pokémon, which would presumably include extraterrestrial species, meaning that either there are multiple Mew out there in Pokespace, or even extraterrestrial Pokémon originally come from the Pokémon world. We don't know, we will probably never know, so let's spend our time talking about something we do know. For example, the alien species of Generation 1. Despite this being the generation that started it all and, from a meta perspective, created the Pokémon world, it is also among the generation with the highest number of alien species, especially when you disregard legendaries. The first you come across in the national decks are Clefairy and Clefable, with Cleffa of course added in gold and silver. These are probably among the most famous extraterrestrial Pokémon, with the anime dedicating several episodes to it, even showing them building and riding a spaceship, which is definitely not canon to the games. The Pokédex is quite clear about it. The Clefairy family uses meteors as their ships of sorts to traverse the Poké Galaxy, although whether they are capable of steering these themselves is kept ambiguous. I hope so though, I don't like the thought of a random Cleffa floating around alone in the depths of space. It is implied through several dex entries that all Clefairy and Clefable possibly arrive on Poké Earth per meteorite as a Cleffa, as they are the only member of the family whose entries reference this behavior and how commonly they are seen near meteor showers. Clefairy and Clefable's dex entries never reference this whatsoever, so it seems likely to me it's only the Cleffa who come here via meteorite, which then grow up to become the Clefairy and Clefable we find in the wild. Widely covered is the behavior of this family to dance on their starry nights with a full moon. We can even experience this firsthand ourselves in the Johto games in what I still think is one of the coolest little events in Pokémon ever. Legends Arceus later basically redid this with the quest The Clefairy's Moonlit Dance, and recent mainline games have still mentioned the event in the Pokédex as well. Safe to say they haven't stopped dancing yet. The Clefairy line was also the first Pokémon ever to truly tie their habitat into their own personal biology, with them of course being native to Mount Moon in Kanto, which is a meteor site. Later games would keep up this behavior, having Clefairy found in Meteor Falls, the Giant Chasm, Mount Hokulani and Mount Coronet, all sites where extraterrestrial behavior has occurred, and as such, many of the Pokémon found in this video live on these routes. As far as locating from where Cleffa may be taking their meteorite, with a D, by far the biggest hints seem to point towards a location that's actually not too far away: the moon. Not only is the moon where presumably moonstones come from, not only Clefairy's evolution item, but also a gem of great importance to their culture, much more so than say for Skitty or Jigglypuff, the connection with dancing under the full moon also seems to signify this is important to them. Now, it is confirmed Pokémon's version of the moon landing did happen, with all Kanto games featuring a character in the Pewter Museum who mentions it. So if this is where Clefairy are from, researchers in the Pokémon world would probably know. Why we don't know for certain, that's hard to say. The moon in general is surprisingly underused in Pokémon, for a location that's seemingly important for a whole bunch of species, even if they aren't extraterrestrial, like Umbreon, Ursaluna or Lycanroc. Kanto does feature another alien species, but I want to skip that one for now to return later and instead focus on Solrock and Lunatone. They are specifically called the Meteor Pokémon, so take a guess what their lore is. Despite some dex entries still trying to keep up the charade that perhaps this duo isn't actually aliens, that is very clearly the intention. Hell, we have a guy in the Haina Desert in Sun and Moon who just outright beams himself up into the stars using one of them. How obvious do you want to make it? They too are almost exclusively found at meteor sites, just like Clefairy, and the Johto remakes in X and Y even borderline confirm they only arrived on Earth approximately 40 years before these games take place. However, since these two are clearly meteors, they're presumably not from an actual planet or even celestial body like Cleffa are, instead presumably floating in between Earth and the Moon. This is further supported by the fact Solrock and Lunatone can be found holding Sun and Moon stones respectively, which supposedly originate from the nearby Sun and Moon and not some faraway space system. Next up is the poster child of alien Pokémon, Deoxys. The story of Deoxys is that it is in essence an alien virus that only became a Pokémon due to the effects of a laser beam, which we found out in Oras is the attack Rayquaza unleashes. As such, it's very hard to say if Deoxys actually is even a species of Pokémon, as in, is there a planet of Deoxys out there? The actual Pokémon? Probably not, but the virus it originates from you would think has to come from somewhere and is probably not alone in the universe. What is definitely worth pointing out is a possible connection between Deoxys and the Pokémon we skipped earlier, Staryu and Starmie. These two are confirmed to be from outer space themselves as well, and have some key similarities to Deoxys, despite the games never really drawing up an actual connection to them. Both have a striking orb in the middle of their body, which we know Staryu and Starmie use to communicate with the stars, whatever that means. It is possible that either Deoxys uses its orb the same way, or that it potentially hails from a similar planet to Staryu and Starmie and contains some similar DNA, resulting in a similar look. That latter theory is also supported by the fact they both have regenerative abilities. You can cut off their limbs and they'll grow right back, which is actually something real-life starfish do as well, but in the Pokémon world, these are the only 3 Pokémon capable of doing it in such an extreme way. In the movie Destiny Deoxys, it is actually established that it's the orb in the center of its body that allows Deoxys to regenerate, potentially explaining why Staryu and Starmie are capable of it as well, if they truly are the same thing. And we're getting into minor stuff here now, but I do also find it interesting that the triangle-shaped rock that Deoxys apparently comes to Earth with could also be seen as a parallel to Staryu and Starmie, who both of course have a bunch of triangles around their orb to make up their star shape. Since Sinnoh has no Pokémon for which the game suggests they might be from outer space, we skip right on to Unova, which actually introduces the most, although I wouldn't call them the most interesting crop. The Clefairy family is very loosely mentioned to possibly have extraterrestrial origins, but this is never really expanded on, nor is there further information on it. All we have to go off is that Clefairy is said to be able to arrange pebbles to form constellations, and that it gets its power from the stars, which is suspect, sure, but with how extreme the powers of this evolution family apparently are, I think this could just as easily be a tale about their great curiosity and knowledge about the universe, rather than them actually hailing from a distant planet. On the opposite side of the spectrum are LGM and BEM, Pokémon so aggressively alien there is absolutely no mistaking it. 50 years prior to the events of Black and White, these Pokémon crashed their spaceship in the desert resort in an event that is clearly based on the Roswell incident in real-world New Mexico, where allegedly a UFO containing aliens crashed in 1947, leading to a conspiracy that still has its impact today. For example, it is directly responsible for the belief that Area 51 houses aliens. That may or may not be true, but that LGM and BEM are extraterrestrial is super obvious. Their dex entries mention they have the power to rewrite the memories of people and Pokémon around them, explaining why not a lot more is known about how exactly they arrived on Poké-Earth, but it seems likely to me that unlike fellow pilots Cleffa, these Pokémon truly come from very far away. I do think it is noteworthy though, that neither of the two can actually be found in the desert resort by the time we can explore it, with LGM now relocated to Celestial Tower and BEM to Route 14. I've really done my best to try to find possible reasons for this and what it could mean, but I couldn't come up with much more beyond just a general LGM is in Celestial Tower to be closer to the stars, which I doubt is the intention. We also have zero clues about where these Pokémon may naturally be from, but the funny thing is that in universe, humans may actually have a better idea. It said in LGM's Sword Dex entry that when it stands next to a TV, a strange scenery appears on screen, which is speculated to be their home planet. What this scenery looks like, we don't know, so it's impossible to say anything more about it. But hey, maybe one day we will get a look at it and be able to fill in some blanks. The last extraterrestrial Pokemon of Unova is, or are, either Kyurem or the entire Tau trio, depending on what you believe. Now, I recently made a video that went way deeper into this, so I won't waste your time too much now, and just summarize that at the very least, we know Kyurem came to Earth in a meteorite and caused the giant chasm to be the crater it is. However, it is also strongly hinted at the possibility of it being the original dragon who was on board the meteorite instead, suggesting that not just Kyurem, but also Zekrom and Reshiram are aliens. It's definitely a certain possibility, and while I would wager that the original dragon is a unique and powerful Pokemon regardless of where it's from, this does also bring up the possibility that there is an entire planet of original dragons out there, and that the Tau trio as we know them are actually nothing special, similar to Koraidon and Miraidon. I don't think that is the intention, and I don't think that will be the conclusion Game Freak go for, but it is fun to think about. In a very similar position is Eternatus, which similarly holds a great importance to the history, lore and culture of its region Galar, but arrived in the region 20,000 years ago on a meteorite. Not a lot is known about how exactly Eternatus came to the Pokémon World all those centuries ago and what it immediately caused, with the game rather focusing on what happened after it awoke from its 17,000 year slumber, with the Darkest Day and of course the modern return of Eternatus at the hands of Chairman Rose. We don't even know if Eternamax Eternatus is its true form, or rather some ultimate form that it was only able to ever achieve thanks to the power it absorbed from Galar. Parallels can definitely be drawn between the story of Eternatus and that of Deoxys. The similarities are evident, but their differences are as well, and whereas I do think Staryu and Starmie share an origin with Deoxys, Eternatus definitely does not. Physically, Eternatus resembles the Ultra Beast much more, but as alien as those look, they are actually not from outer space at all, and instead from other dimensions, which some may consider the same thing, but it's most definitely not. Even Ultra Space is not actually in space. So yeah, currently nothing can be said about Eternatus' origins beyond what I've already mentioned, but I do want to say I don't believe Eternatus is a species. It feels like a mutation, like an anomaly, like a truly unique being. I don't believe there is a planet of Eternatus out there, like I could see being the case for say Deoxys, despite them both having a status as legendary and mythical Pokemon. And finally, I want to look at a group of maybes, Pokemon that may be extraterrestrial or may not be. The first here is the Beldum line. Members of this family have commonly been found near meteor sites, just like Clefairy, Lunatone and Solrock. Mount Hokulani, the Giant Chasm, both have Beldum, Metang and Metagross found there. They are also commonly found holding metal codes, which have been hinted at potentially being extraterrestrial, through them being the possible source of Registeel's metallic body, which is said to consist of a material not found on Earth. Another Pokemon family frequently found holding metal codes is the Magneton line, and several dex entries for Magnezone even mention people mistaking it for a UFO, leading to theories they may be extraterrestrial. What adds further weight to this idea is the fact that Pokemon Legends Arceus nearly exclusively places this Pokemon in space-time distortions, suggesting they're not native to the world. Except for a few Magnezone in Coronet Highlands, meaning that it's also not the case of Magnemite having yet to be created, made or developed, as is the case with for example Porygon. It's an odd situation that definitely hints at some deeper, unnatural origin, and a lot of potential hints do point at one beyond the stars. But I am not some blind believer. Pokemon Violet has occulture articles to be found for Iron Treads and Iron Moth, which suggests these Pokemon may hail from the future, where they were built by aliens. Iron Treads would be a weapon built with technology from beyond Earth, while Iron Moth is suspected to actually be a UFO, controlled by aliens, sent here to spy on humans while awaiting an invasion. Look, that's all very nicely thought up, I like it, but I don't believe for 1 second we were supposed to take this seriously. The Paradox Pokemon in general appear to have an origin that's different from what sources in-game theorize and tell us, and when you start giving us backstory that's even more ludicrous and presumably even less reliable than a Pokédex entry, I'm sorry, but you're losing me. So as far as I'm concerned, these Pokemon are not from outer space, even if the games may hint at them being. But what do you think? Where are these alien Pokémon from? And what do you suspect may be extraterrestrial Pokémon, even if the games themselves never mention it? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all my future Pokémon content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.